everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's episode of Can You Repeat That podcast? We're your hosts. My name is Leslie.
My name's Chantelle.
And I am Atlas.
Before I get into the story, I just want to give a little warning that this case does involve deceit within the healthcare system, mainly pharmacy and chemo drugs. So if you or someone that you care about is struggling or going through anything in this category, this may not be the story for you this week. With that being said, today we are discussing the case of Robert Courtney. I know Atlas knows who this is, but do you, Shanty?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, buckle up because he's a monster.
Oh,
An
okay.
actual monster.
Yeah, that's
Alright.
one way of putting it. Yeah.
Robert Courtney was born September 15th in 1952 in Hays, Kansas. His father was a traveling minister and would describe Robert as an ideal son. From everything that I could see, he had a fairly uneventful childhood aside from traveling due to his father's career. He played in a band and was considered a model child. Robert graduated from high school, then went to the University of Missouri, Kansas City in 1975 and got his degree in pharmacy as a pharmacist. He would also become a deacon in Northland Cathedral, a megachurch that's located in Kansas City. Side note, I had to Google what the heck a deacon was. So, just to make sure this is clarified for everybody listening, a deacon is a member of the diaconate, which then I had to Google that because I don't know what that is. So, that basically is someone who is in charge of making decisions or like a community servant. So, he's just like a higher up in the church, a well respected man, a pillar of the community, some would say. So he was just a well known guy in the community and had a good reputation. To all those around him, he was an outstanding member of society and someone that they welcomed and trusted with their lives. Robert Courtney got a job at the Medical Tower Pharmacy and eventually bought the practice from his then boss in 1986, 11 years after starting there, and specialized in intravenous compounding. Intravenous is IV medications. I couldn't find too much information on Courtney's first wife, but I do know that they ended up getting divorced in 1992. He got custody of his two daughters from that marriage, and he paid his ex-wife a lump sum of $196,000 USD. Shortly after divorcing his first wife, Courtney rekindled a relationship from his childhood and basically love bombed his soon-to-be second wife. He would buy her son's presents, drive her around in his ex-wife's Jaguar, and take her on horse-drawn carriage rides. 2 months after rekindling, he proposed to her and they ended up eloping, but not everything was as it seemed. According to the New York Times articles, she would go on to say that Courtney would not allow her to wear casual clothes, even around the house. He wanted her appearance to be perfect and demanded she didn't gain 1 pound during the relationship and made her get rid of her vehicle that she did have to buy a BMW. Courtney also told her to pick out a new house, but every home she showed him wasn't up to his standards. She states that Courtney would throw money around for appearances around his church friends, but while home and in private, he would complain about his parents, quote, squeezing him for money. Within 2 days of their marriage, Courtney would advise his new wife that she would need to get a job and to think of ways to save money. One of the ways of saving money is whenever they went out, he would order what he wanted and she would have to eat off of his plate. She would also say that his moods would shift dramatically. 1 minute he would be distant or uninterested, and then he would go to enraged and ready to take down anything in his path. She even recalls during one of the episodes seeing him yell at one of his daughters and then slap her. After that encounter, she pieced out, and I do not blame her for it. Do y'all have any guesses as to how long their marriage lasted?
The second one?
Yes. If you know the
Oh,
answer, at least
yeah.
don't.
Yeah, I know the
Don't.
answer. And it's not shocking in the slightest.
Okay, Shanty, a guess.
Uh, eh, 1 week.
5
Close,
days.
yeah.
But I'm not really
It's
shocked.
annulled very quickly thereafter.
He definitely love bombed her and then was like, okay, these are my true colors once he thought he had her. So I'm glad she got out whenever she did.
I have a lot of words, and honestly, none of them are appropriate. So,
Mm-hmm.
It gets worse. Don't worry.
oh, great.
We've just begun. Don't worry, Shanty.
Oh, yay. Okay.
The split didn't bother Courtney for too long because within 2 years, he married his third wife, Laura, and in 1994, they welcomed twins. Outsiders would view Laura as an observer and not want to give much input. Laura had also signed a prenup, had no control over the household financial affairs, and was given an allowance, for lack of a better word at least. I don't think they actually, in the article that I read, called it an allowance, but that's what it was. He would give her a certain amount of money per week or month. Others who were also on his payroll were 2 of his daughters and his father. Courtney would often brag about the donations he made to the church, and in 1999, he pledged $1 million to the church over the course of 3 years. The weight of the pledge he made, the time frame it was promised in, and the lifestyle started weighing heavy on Courtney's shoulders to the point where he called his second wife. She said he would go on to explain that the family vacations, the cars, the houses, and the church donations would require a yearly salary more than he, or really any pharmacist, would be able to receive. And this is when Courtney made the choice to really change the way he operated. He sold his homes and downsized to a 1,200 square foot trailer. I'm kidding. That is not what happened, but that's what we wish had happened. Instead of making lifestyle changes, Courtney had turned to the gray market years prior when he was still married to his first wife. The recent stressors just made that more frequent and more careless with his actions. For those who do not know, the gray market refers to medications that are bought from places not authorized by the manufacturer. The medications bought are legitimate most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yes, but tend to be cheaper as they're sourced from places where the cost of the medication itself is cheaper. But by skipping past the authorized distributors, there's a lack of regulation, which decreases costs, but also increases the risk of medications not being stored properly, or contamination, or just getting the wrong drug entirely, or placebos. So we're going to back up a bit. When Courtney bought the practice in the medical center, he saw an opportunity. In the same center is where oncologist Dr. Verda Hunter practiced. Dr. Hunter mainly dealt with ovarian and uterine cancers and had her own infusion center in her office where her patients could receive their treatments. Instead of having her patients go across town to pick up their chemo infusions, Dr. Hunter had started sending them to Robert Courtney instead, which makes more sense for the patients. It's more convenient, but as we will see, this was not a good thing. Once the medication orders were received, Courtney would have to physically make the correct dose for the individual patients. Since patients no longer had to travel to go get their medications, it saved them time and energy, only needing to walk across the medical center to the pharmacy itself and not have to travel. As time went on, Dr. Hunter and her patients realized that they weren't experiencing some of the normal side effects of chemo. Patients weren't losing their hair, they weren't nauseous, they weren't weak, etc. This gave the patients a bit of hope, thinking that they were defying the odds. Yes. It's now 1998. Eli Lilly representative Daryl Ashley was making rounds to the doctors around the area presenting clinical information and how it could help the patients when he contacted Dr. Verda Hunter's office. While speaking with Dr. Hunter's staff, they informed him that the patients were not losing their hair or experiencing any other side effects from Taxol or Gemzar medications, which are popular chemo drugs used in their office. At that point, he had concerns. Feeling uneasy about the situation, he asked Dr. Hunter's nurse where they were buying their Gemzar vials, to which they replied Robert Courtney's pharmacy and provided the representative with the utilization reports. Having the utilization reports in hand, Ashley was able to go back and see how much Gemzar was being ordered from the manufacturer. The reports showed that Courtney was buying much less than what he was selling, which meant one of two things. Either Courtney was using the illegal gray market or was cutting patients' doses. The nurses would also tell Ashley that Courtney was selling Gemzar for $20 less a vial than what Eli Lilly was. Now, initially, that doesn't seem too much cheaper, I mean, $20 is $20. I'd take $20 if anyone offered it to me. But allow me to give some perspective. According to the manufacturer's Magellan's website, the max daily, I went to work for a second in my brain. The max dose of the 1,000 milligram injectable medication Gemzar is 3 vials per 7 days. That's $80 per month, and an average treatment is 6 months. That's $480 per patient on average. This was also back in 1998, so keep that in mind. Again, this doesn't seem like too much over that period of time, but when you multiply that by however many patients, not only that Dr. Hunter had, but whoever else was in that building or using his pharmacy, that's a really big number. Ashley had come to the conclusion that Robert Courtney had been diluting patients' chemo medication. Ashley expressed his concern to the nurses, stating something was wrong, and when he got home, he received a phone call from Dr. Hunter herself. They discussed the lack of side effects, the price cut, and the utilization report. By the end of the phone call, Dr. Hunter was at a loss for words. Dr. Hunter wrote prescriptions for a fake patient and then sent the order in to Robert Courtney's pharmacy to be filled. Once in hand, Dr. Hunter took that sample and paid out of her own pocket to have the medication sent to a third-party lab to test the potency of the medication. Unfortunately, once the results came back, Dr. Hunter and Daryl Ashley's fears were realized. The order came back as only having 30% of the potency required in it. This would be the reason why patients were not experiencing side effects. Dr. Hunter immediately stopped using Courtney's pharmacy and advised them to fill her medications elsewhere, while the nurses in her office were trained to do in-house compounding. Once patients started filling their chemo drugs at a pharmacy other than Courtney's, literally any other pharmacy, they started experiencing side effects within the following days of their first treatment, if not immediately. Patients were nauseous during and after treatments, they started losing their hair, and they slowed down. Dr. Hunter made the decision with her attorney, that was a hard word for me, attorney, to contact the FBI. In the following days, Hunter would meet the DEA and FBI agents with her attorney. Both agents from the DEA and FBI initially thought that there had to be a reasonable explanation for what has happened, as a pharmacist wouldn't do this to their patients willingly. Dr. Hunter, being the smart cookie she is, had thought to write a couple more prescriptions for fake patients, have them filled by Courtney, and brought them to the meeting with the agents. They tested 7 samples to the sent is the sentence that I wrote. They sent 7 samples to the National FDA Forensics Lab, and once again, the orders were diluted. All 7 of the orders had only 17 to 33% of the required dose. According to the show License to Kill, if he would have prepared the orders as prescribed, it would have cost approximately $3,000 USD. The amount of chemotherapy he put in the samples was approximately $700 USD. So his profit margins were very, very large. With all this brought to light, there are so many questions to be answered. How many patients were affected? Was he only diluting the chemo drugs? When did he start diluting the medications? Courtney bought his pharmacy in 1988, and by this time we were in the 2000s. It's now August 2001, and it's only been 11 days since the start of the investigation. The FBI had thought they had more than enough evidence to move in on Courtney. They presented their evidence, which included the samples, to the U.S. Attorney's Office. However, even with the samples, they lacked, quote, probable cause in order to give a search warrant and bring Courtney in for questioning. The FBI and DEA agents oh my gosh.
You good?
No, apparently not. I think I'm having a stroke.
Don't say that.
You went to Courtney's pharmacy, didn't you?
I did. The FBI and DEA agents needed to tie the evidence back to Courtney somehow. After all, there were other pharmacists in that building. So they came up with a pretty straightforward way of getting that. They had Dr. Hunter call in chemo. Mika, why? She has been silent up until I started this Zoom call.
Get it, girl.
No.
Get it, Mika.
She finds like
Mika, get it.
The one toy that has the squeaker in it still, just to make noise. Okay, anywho.
It's our gremlin.
I know. They had Dr. Hunter call in a chemo order to Robert Courtney's pharmacy. Once the order was ready, Courtney walked the order up to Dr. Hunter's office and handed it to a nurse. They knew that Courtney had mixed the order as his initials were on the label, which means he was the one to fill the order. The nurse took the order back to another room where an FDA and FBI agent were waiting. The agents bagged the order and flew them straight to Ohio to be tested by the FDA. They received the results the next day, which showed one sample of Taxol only had 28% of the required dose. A sample of Gemzar was only 24% of the required dose. And a third sample showed, any guesses as to what percentage of medication the third sample had?
12%.
I was going to say somewhere in the realm of 12 to 15, maybe less.
The third sample had 0% of the medication.
It was a placebo. It was a sugar pill. Jeez.
It wasn't even that. It was just normal saline. He just didn't inject anything into the bag. A lot of these medications, the chemo drugs, were clear, so there was no way to tell. Yeah. This guy, I don't even have a word bad enough to describe him.
I do, but I can't say it if we're going to be on YouTube.
He was getting cocky enough to put no medication in chemo patients' IVs. You're right. There are words to describe him, but nothing appropriate or that my family should ever hear me say.
Exactly.
With the new test received, a search warrant was obtained. Their goal was to obtain pharmacy records which showed Robert Courtney's supplier and that he was documenting filling a prescription as written and knowingly dispensing the wrong dose. So the agents walked up to Courtney, identified themselves, and said they were investigating a pharmacist and was wondering if he could help them. Courtney, wanting to suddenly be of use, I guess, and helpful, agreed. The agents asked Courtney who prepared this chemo order, to which Courtney stated quickly and without hesitation, I did. Right then and there, Robert Courtney was placed under arrest. He confessed to a horrible crime without even understanding he confessed, because he's stupid. At that time, the agents informed Courtney that he was in fact the pharmacist that was under investigation. They would say that, exactly. They would say that Courtney was in a state of shock. And it amazes me, not just with this case, but in many, how some criminals are so confident that they will never be caught, to where they're willing to talk to FBI and DEA agents and just be like, oh yeah, I'll help you with whatever you need, thinking that they're not going to get caught. I'm glad that they do. I'm not saying that I'm not, but the boldness, the cockiness,
narcissist in them.
Yeah.
Yes. Soon after that, Courtney got an attorney, which is not shocking. Courtney's pharmacy was shut down immediately and all records were confiscated. Here comes more frustration. The only thing that was helping Courtney in this case was the fact that we have no way to prove that if Courtney's actions are what led to the death of the patients. There is no way to say if that patient received their full medication at their full dose for their full duration, they would still be here.
Ain't no way.
Because while modern day medication is incredible, it's not 100%. They also cannot prove who did and who didn't receive their full doses, which ties back into my first point being there's no way to prove that they wouldn't have passed anyway.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's what makes this case so incredibly frustrating. I mean, it's sad all the way around. And I don't know, what's a word that means that's more than sad? Upsetting, infuriating, big sad.
Big sad.
Big sad.
Big sad about it.
So, I don't know. Dejected, sorrowful, depressing, miserable.
This is why we have Atlas around. He's our human dictionary.
Wretched, melancholic,
I don't know.
asshole.
Listen,
I'm trying to keep it to the nice words for this jackass, but it's hard.
I think big sad fits the bill really well. But with Courtney having money and being labeled as a flight risk, the agents working their case decided to move forward with what they called a 1-count charge to keep him behind bars while they gathered their case. The agents filed 1 count of adulteration and misbranding for the diluted medication. That was the one charge at the time they knew that they could prove and would prevent him from getting out on, what is it called? Bail?
Bail.
Yes, it would prevent him from getting out on bail. August 15th, 2001, 19 days since the start of the investigation, Robert Courtney decided to turn himself into the FBI. This was not a noble decision on his part. This was more of a CYA situation. By turning himself in, he could possibly receive a lighter sentence at the end of everything for
I'd give him a
cooperating.
lighter sentence. I'd light him on fire.
Wordplay's fun.
It is.
With Courtney now behind bars and unable to continue his criminal activity, the investigators could focus on who Robert Courtney had harmed. People in the town and across the nation were advised to contact the FBI if they had received any medication from Robert Courtney or his pharmacies. The community was left shaken and scared with more questions than answers. Did they or their loved ones receive their full dose? Were there long-term effects caused by the lack of medication? Is their cancer or condition more likely to reoccur due to the possible lack of medication? And the list of questions just goes on. The question running through the majority's mind is why? The FBI dug into Courtney's financial history and learned that he had amassed somewhere around $19 million USD. But was it just the money, or was it the power that he was addicted to? Did he enjoy playing God while deciding who received the proper dose and who didn't? The FBI and DEA's goal was to be able to charge Courtney with homicide, but in dealing with the unknown, they took a shot in the dark. They contacted pharmacists showing them patient files and asking, can you say with a reasonable degree of medical certainty that this being the diluted medication, caused the individual's death? But as I stated earlier, you really can't answer that question. Everyone knows for a fact that Robert Courtney stole time that people had on this earth and with their loved ones, but we can't prove it in the court of law. August 23rd, 2001, Robert was formally accused by the federal grand jury for drug tampering of chemo drugs, to which Courtney would respond, quote, get ready to be mad, okay? Quote, I respectfully decline to answer pursuant to my rights, and pled not guilty.
Bullshit.
Yes.
Bullshit.
Yes. No words. I don't have words for how insane he is.
He's a bloody swine is what he is. Pharmacists are supposed to be people you trust. They handle,
Pharmacists are one of the most trusted medical professionals. You trust that the pharmacist behind the counter is going to be handing you the correct medication, the correct quantities, the correct dose. Pharmacists are doctors of medicine. They catch your drug interactions. They catch too high of doses. So whenever you hear a story like this, I can't. This story hurts my brain and my heart
they literally hold people's lives in their hands sometimes.
all the time.
I mean,
Every prescription.
every time they hand me the medication for my heart, I trust that it's going to do what it's supposed to do and keep my heart rate steady and everything how it's supposed to be.
It's this. We're not dumb whatsoever.
Yeah,
with this.
There's more to it. This is just like I can feel the heat building in my neck and ears right now.
Yes, Atlas's blood pressure is going a little higher than we need it to. Stupid head, silly little dumb stupid guy pleaded not guilty, despite there literally being records saying that he filled even the medications, like the 7 or however many they sent for samples, says that he filled them to the correct dose and initialed them. In pharmacy with controlled medications, you have to circle the quantity and you have to initial. It's documentation that you filled it as prescribed. So it shows that, and he's still saying not guilty. I don't know. The guy's, I don't have nice words, so I'm gonna move on. February 26, 2002, the government decided that it would be best for everyone to enter into a plea deal with Courtney, since there was no way to prove that his actions were directly responsible for the death of any of his patients, or how much damage he caused in total without his cooperation. Robert Courtney pleaded guilty and admitted to diluting at least 160 doses of cancer medication between 34 different patients. Courtney pled guilty to every charge they brought before him, but part of his deal was that he had to inform the government of all of his crimes. One of the statements made by Courtney after sentencing, after he said, yeah, it was 160 doses of medication, he said, quote, Whatever I could dilute, I did dilute for as long as I've been a pharmacist, which was 1975. He also admitted the motive behind his crimes was greed. He admitted to diluting 72 different medications, affecting 98,000 prescriptions and over 4,000 patients. But let's be honest, it's definitely more than that. That's just what he's agreeing to. And I'm sure he did not stop at liquid medications or IV medications. I'm sure he shorted patients with every drug form he could, including tablets and capsules, whether that was shorting them 1 tablet or 5. This case is very hard, I think, for anyone to wrap their head around, but I don't know. I've been a technician since I was 18. I cannot imagine even shorting a patient 1 tablet of a non-life-saving medication.
You at the very least are a decent human being.
Well, thanks. I'm not going to disagree with that. But
I mean, there's a lot of fucked up people in this world.
Yes,
That's the truth.
There do be. In December of 2002, Robert Courtney was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison, the maximum amount of years for this type of crime that he committed. Surrounded by victims, their families, and friends, the only dry eye in that courtroom was Courtney.
Sounds about right.
He showed no remorse and seemed only mildly interested in what was happening around him. For victims and their families, this was not enough. And to that, I say I agree. Robert Courtney was required to pay approximately $10 million to the victims and their families, plus a fine of $25,000, but no amount of money will bring back the people that he killed and the pain he's caused these families. In 2013, Courtney was diagnosed with prostate cancer and pled for an early release. He was denied, just putting that out there, saying, quote, "The heaviness in my heart will always be present. Not the fact that I failed and lost my success, but I lost being present with my children, my dad, my grandkids, my wife, my career, trust, and education." And to that, I say, at least you still get to talk to them, to visit them, to hear their voices and hug them, except his dad, of course. But still, his expected release date was originally May 2nd, 2026. However, the spring of 2024, families of victims received a letter which states that June 20th, 2024, 8 days ago now, at the time of my research, 2 days prior, at the age of 71, he'll be released to a halfway house in Springfield, Missouri.
Why?
So to any of our listeners in Missouri, in Springfield, Missouri, find him. I mean, no, I'm not telling you to commit murder, but if you happen to find Robert Courtney, you
For
know
legal
what to do.
purposes, we didn't say that.
Our podcast is not yeah. For legal purposes, we do not advise you killing anyone.
Hang on. Yep. My lawyer off to my left is frantically waving at me, telling me I'm not supposed to say that. So disregard that previous statement.
Redacted. So, where is Dr. Hunter? Absolutely no clue. She basically vanished from what I can't find. There's no info I can find on her. I can't find if she's still practicing, if she's still in that city, that state, or even the United States. I'm sure she received some type of payout. That's just speculation. I have no idea if she did or not. I can't find any information on her, but I imagine this was career killing for her as well, which it's not fair to anyone at all. Anyone involved in Robert Courtney's life has suffered in one way or another, regardless of their relationship to him, patient or family.
Oh, she practices still in Kansas City, Missouri.
Jesus Christ. Where'd you find this?
Well, she got married. Her name is Hicks now instead of...
Oh.
If you look under Verda Hicks, Dr. Verda Hicks, an oncologist, yeah, she still practices in Kansas City. But she did part ways with Eli Lilly. Does not do any business with them anymore.
Wow. Well, now I feel really silly. I didn't think that it's possible she got married.
Honestly, the only reason that I found that was because I was looking into this when I heard he had been released recently. So I was like, I wonder what happened to some of the players involved.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, good for her. It sucks that her name is associated with this whole thing. But also, she's a hero.
She is. And I would imagine that was one reason that because many doctors, when they get married, they keep their maiden name if they have one.
Mhm.
I imagine she didn't specifically to distance
She was
herself from
like,
that.
I cannot wait to
People
get
know Verda
married.
Hicks. People know Verda Hunter, but maybe they don't know Verda Hicks. I don't know.
Clearly, I had no idea. I was like searching, where's Dr. Verda Hunter now? Where's Dr. Hunter now? Dr. Verda Hunter, oncologist, Missouri, wherever, you know.
I
Well,
mean, none of it's her fault, but I can still understand why she'd want
no.
to distance herself from that.
Yeah, for sure. I would want to. As for the number of his victims, we have no clue. For the people affected by this horrible person, I don't really know how to say this, and I know it's going to sound corny or maybe a little weird, but despite what has happened, I wish everyone affected by this person a lifetime of love, kindness, and I hope you have been able to heal. I'm getting emotional. I can't imagine the thoughts and feelings they're going through at this time, but I'm sending all of the good vibes their way. There is support groups that I found. One of them in particular is on Facebook called Victims Families of Robert Courtney for families of his victims and friends. It seems somewhat active. It shows that they post like twice monthly and they only have, I think it's under 100 members, or it was at the time of my research. But sometimes reaching out to people with similar stories or situations can help the healing process to know you're not alone in your anger and grief. There are other support groups available, and they're a wonderful resource if available to those needing help processing their feelings, especially with the news of his release. And with that being said, that is the story of one of the most evil men in the world today and his victims. So sorry to depress you.
Yeah.
His crime, I say this from the stance of getting away with murder, not morality or anything like that, but this was basically like a perfect crime because it leans so heavily into, well, if this person didn't get their full chemo dose, would they have been alive right now? Like, you can't prove someone would have lived if they got every dose. That's what
Yeah.
makes this case really hard. And then another thing that came into play with this is the timing. It was 2001, August of 2001, which Americans know for sure why this was not a good time. I'm sure Shanty probably does, but September 11th, 2001 was less than a month from this whole investigation, which took a lot of the media attention away. And by the time all that was over, it's like, just, we've had enough tragedy, I guess, make a plea deal. It sucks that they had to go plea deal route, but looking at it from, well, can it be proven? It can't really. They can prove that he tampered with doses with, some of the things that were documented, but the true number of patients and medications diluted is very much unknown.
I saw estimates from law enforcement somewhere in the realm of 98,000 based on
Yeah.
how long he was in practice.
Yeah. So he admitted to diluting 72 different medications, affecting 98,000 prescriptions and over 4,000 patients.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's more than that. He said that he could dilute, whatever he could
Whatever
dilute,
I could, I did, yeah.
Yes. Like I said, I'm sure that didn't stop at liquid medications. I'm sure he shorted patients, tablets, capsules, caplets, everything.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, do either of you know it's not on anymore, but the TV show American Greed? Or have you heard of it?
It came up in my research. There was a show that I used. I'll put my sources in the show notes. But the show that I watched was Licensed to Kill, and that was a story on him.
The episode of American Greed was called Deadly Prescription for Greed, or Deadly RX for Greed.
Mhm.
And they mentioned how after sentencing, he also admitted that he'd tampered with diabetes medications,
Mhm.
medications for AIDS patients, fertility
Yep.
treatments. It wasn't just everything this guy got his hands on. He
Yes.
tried to turn into a profit. It's just disgusting.
Like I said, I don't even think it was the money after a certain point.
Oh, it was control.
Yes, playing God.
Well, I mean, look at the way that he treated his wives.
Mhm.
Man has control issues.
Yes.
It was a power trip for him after a while. I mean, he said it was greed, but I don't think it was greed for just money.
No, not at all. Not at 19 million. I mean, I don't even know how you spend that much money in a lifetime.
Look at and also how carefully he crafted his public persona too.
Yeah, and
It's all about the control for this guy.
Everything, this whole story, every aspect of it is incredibly messed up. But he would take the prescription order from the patient, put his hand on a patient's shoulder and say, "We're going to take care of you," and then dilute their
Gag me with a
medications.
spoon.
Mm-hmm. He is absolutely, I don't have a word, evil.
You know who ended up paying more, though, were the companies that he contracted to, like Eli Lilly and Bristol Myers Squibb, because they were, I don't know if you saw this in your research, but like they got named in a lot of civil suits from his acts, from patients. They paid out, I think, between the two of them, those two companies, was over 70 million in civil suits. So, the companies who didn't know what he was doing were the ones who took the fall for it.
Basically, anyone else could be blamed except him.
I mean, I guess he did take the fall for it. He did go to prison. Not long enough, in my opinion.
No, not long enough whatsoever. Less than 30 years?
Yeah, because convicted in sentence in 2001 or 2002. Yeah, should not have gotten out in 24. Again, off the record, Springfield, Missouri. Just saying.
You know what you gotta do.
You know what to do.
Stop it.
For legal purposes, that is a joke.
No, vigilanteism is wrong. That was a joke. Do not do creatively horrible things to Robert Courtney if you find him, which we will not list in the Instagram because I'm not supposed to do that.
Supposedly.
Allegedly. Joking aside, there's some people who just, nope, I can't say that. We're going to be on YouTube. I can't say what I was about to say.
Yeah. And then his quote of, "I lost time with my family." Shut up.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Shut up.
Shut up and take your own chemo medicine.
Yeah, right?
Like, oh, I've got a state of stroke. I have hypertension. I have cancer. Well, take your own meds then, bud. I'm sure they'll work.
Why don't we give you the same treatment that you gave others?
Complete with the pat on the shoulder.
Like I said, to that comment, I say at least you still get to talk to your family. You get to visit your family. You get to hear their voices. You get to hug them. And your victims don't.
If they want to. I mean,
I know.
I'm sorry. If a member of my family did this, I'd be like, I'm sorry, you're not my family.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. Apparently, he still has fairly good contact with his family, which I don't understand. I mean, I
kind of do.
I guess denial is pretty crazy.
Well,
but he was also just a shit dad and partner. So I don't know.
Also, I hate to be the one to say this, but money talks sometimes,
Yeah, it does. Because regardless of the payouts, he had to pay $10 million and $25,000. He still has like $8 million. So he will live comfortably the rest of his life, unlike his victims.
Not if the good people of Springfield, Missouri have anything to say about it.
Alice, bad.
Sorry, I hate this bastard every time I hear about him. Because I remember hearing about this when I was a kid too. And my grandfather died of cancer. So this is a very personal topic for me when people like this abuse treatments like he did. Springfield, Missouri, for Chantelle's sake, don't engage in vigilante justice. Even if he deserves it.
And if you do, it's not because we told you to.
I mean, I'll sure just like Bristol Myers Squibbs and the rest of them, I'll take the fall if you do, because I said it.
No.
We believe in karma. It will come.
Yeah, but not fast enough.
Hey, you never know.
Someone needs to step up and be Batman. That's all I'm going to say.
Get on it.
Prior to doing this research, I sent both Atlas and Chantelle a message, and I was like, so this episode has to do with medication tampering and distrust among medical professionals. Is this okay? And they gave me the okay. So if you hate this episode, it's because they said okay. It's not because I did the research.
Pulling a Courtney on us there, Les, and just throwing us under the bus for your crimes.
Shh. We don't talk about it.
We're talking about it.
Regardless of the episode topic, I think it was a good episode. As this podcast is progressing, my research is just getting so much better. Aside from last name changes, apparently. My writing, and it's just a lot smoother. It's easier to do. So, but yeah. Any final thoughts? I know we have many, but
none that I have to say without Shandy hitting me.
Don't say it again. Yeah, honestly,
I'm going to title this episode Springfield, Missouri. You know what to do.
That's a good one, actually. Yeah, you totally should. That's a good one. Yeah, none of my thoughts are appropriate, so we're just gonna. I have none.
The thoughts that I have that I haven't already overstated would get our video removed from YouTube. So we're not, or some of our other platforms as well. So I'm not going to.
Mhm.
But I think anyone listening can probably hear the exasperation and boiling point, seething rage in my voice right now. It's you can extrapolate what my thoughts are.
Any decent human being is gonna feel the same.
Yes. Yes.
And if you don't,
Go to jail with Courtney. I don't know what to tell you.
He's not in jail. Go to the
Go to a
halfway
halfway
house.
house.
go to the
Maybe that'll be the title. I don't know. You'll see whenever we post it, I guess. I really like the Springfield, Missouri one though, so probably
I
just
do
keep that.
too.
Okay, outro time.
Outro time.
Outro time.
Who wants to do the outro?
I can if y'all want.
Okay, sounds good to me.
I have to find it. Hold
Yeah.
on.
I mean, I've got it. I can do it.
You
Oh,
can do the
okay,
next one,
bet.
Shanty.
Alice is ready.
Because I got two.
I was not ready.
Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. As always, you can find any pictures pertaining to this story posted on our Instagram and Twitter at CYRTPod and on our Facebook page. Be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen because rating helps us out a ton. If you have any topic suggestions or want to share a story of your own, please send us an email at cyrtpod@gmail.com. Until next time.
Hey.